Assalamu alaikum. This is Mohammed Qureshi at The Real Agenda on UCTV. We now today have a guest who's not a stranger to UCTV, but it is his first time on The Real Agenda. Our guest is none other than Jahangir Mohammed. Okay, Jahangir is a prolific writer and thinker, and he's a commentator on global Muslim affairs with 28 years' experience of analyzing the Muslim world and Islamic movements. During this period, he's written numerous articles, opinion pieces, and he's a regular contributor on Muslim and mainstream media. He's a geopolitical analyst and a given expert and an expert for lawyers on extremism and international terrorism. Uh, he's a director for Muslim affairs since 1997, and he's currently the founder of the newly founded Ayan Institute. Okay. I've got to give a bit of a disclaimer here. I've known Jahangir for a good 20 years, and 20 out of those 28 years, I've known him. And he's, for all the time I've known him, he's always been interested in the affairs of the Muslim community, both at home and abroad. And he's always worked to serve the cause for the betterment of the Muslims. And it's been a pleasure knowing you, Jahangir. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum,
Walaikum salam.
UCTV. Jazakallah khair for your kind comments, and I'm fine. And yes,
You could
we have
speak up,
no.
Jahangir. I think we've got problems hearing you.
Okay. Um, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you much better, thanks.
Okay. Did you get that first bit? Shall I start again?
Just about.
Okay. So Jazakallah khair for your comments, kind comments, and for the introduction. Obviously, we've known each other for a long time, and I've done interviews for UCTV. So thank you for this introduction, and let's see where we can go from here. And,
Inshallah, inshallah. So the title of the show today is A Unified Muslim World. And that is something the newly founded Ayan Institute seeks to contribute towards, to hope achieve. What would you say, Jahangir, are like the main factors where Muslims are lagging behind and need to sort of, build themselves as a community, as an ummah, and take those stepping stones towards, a great unity amongst Muslims?
okay, well, first of all, I think we've got a launch event on the 14th
Yeah,
of January at 6 p.m. And if you haven't signed up for that, please
inshallah.
do.
That's tomorrow, folks.
That's tomorrow. And I've actually written a report where some of these issues are touched on. It's a discussion paper, really, to start the discussion in the Muslim community on some of these key issues. And in particularly, what I would say is the forgotten obligation of unity and unification of Muslims. And please do download the report, read it, Creating a New Civilization of Islam. And really, I don't need to tell people about the situation of the Muslim world, because we see it. And we see it every day, and it causes us despair and pain. And we talk about it, and we are really at a loss as to what to do about it. But when you look a little bit deeper, it's actually a lot worse, because we are totally militarily, economically, educationally dependent on the Western world, or the non-Muslim world. And that makes it impossible, really, for Muslims to become independent and to address many of their issues. And in reality, some of the statistics and population projections for the Muslim world for 2050, if we don't address these issues, the situation is going to be a lot worse. I mean, we now have whole populations. In the past, we used to talk about, hotspots of where Muslims were being persecuted or oppressed. Now we have whole populations. India, the Uyghurs, people in Kashmir, and we're not talking small populations here, we're talking large populations. And there's a report published last year which says that since 2001, 37 million people have become refugees as a result of the so-called war on terror. And whoever is responsible for those wars, the reality is that the Muslim refugee population is a bigger size than most countries in the world these days. And many are living in camps in dire situation. And we really have little ability to solve those issues, or so it seems. And that cannot go on. Some places, people have been living in camps for decades. So the reality is that unless the Muslim world does unify, come together to resolve these issues, and we all focus on that, the situation is going to get a lot worse.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us agree with what you have to say, and how things are, where we are lagging behind, etc. I mean, look, 10 years ago this year, we had something that called the Arab Spring. Okay, that swept through the Middle East, and people wanted to seek change. Okay, I mean, what would you reflect on reflection 10 years later? Is there anything you would like to say that what happened then, what it led to, and maybe how things could have been done differently? How do we get real effective change in the Muslim world?
Well, I think the Arab Spring really emerged. The strange thing is that it wasn't led by all those people who've been talking about Islam for decades and for Islamic change. It was ordinary people, young people on the streets who were struggling with their day-to-day life and their day-to-day ability to survive. And in fact, it was a fruit seller who was treated unjustly, and that sparked the whole Arab Spring. So the Islamic movements were not really in charge of the Arab Spring. And the reality is that it was a wake-up call. They caught on very late. They weren't prepared. They hadn't thought about these things. And in almost all the countries, the old established order came back, and there was failure. And the point that I'm making in the report is, look, we've had decades of Islamic movements. We've had decades of attempts to change. And you have to reflect. Sometimes you have to think about what happened, what went wrong, and how to refocus, have fresh thinking, fresh ideas, to see where the failures were and how you can change in the future. And that really still hasn't happened. We're still talking about the same ideas, the same methods, without actually looking at things in detail. So, 10 years on, the issues are still the same. The poverty is going to get worse, and there will be more revolutions or attempts at revolutions to change the existing order, or the governments themselves or the people in that region or the rulers have got to change. And they've got to bring about a change which ensures that their societies will basically, they'll be able to look after their societies in a way which conforms with their beliefs and their values, and feeds them at the same time and provides justice. Otherwise, we're going to have more division, and not only division, we're going to have subdivision, countries are falling into pieces because we haven't addressed the fundamental issues of justice, of ethnic, racial divisions, of hatred, and let alone any of the other issues. And from what I hear around the world and from people who work within government, outside government, the Muslim world is struggling with these issues, indeed, as we've seen in the United States and France and elsewhere, are other parts of the world. These are not just issues that concern the Muslim world; they're now global. And the real thing here is what is the Muslim perspective on all this? What are Muslims contributing in a real and meaningful, practical way to bring about change in not just in the Muslim world, but in the areas that they live?
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so what would you say? Like, let's look at the different situations. You mentioned early on, there's your different types of things we're lagging behind it. It could be economic, it could be military. Where specifically would you say is like the major weaknesses, and what is causing us to lag behind? Like, look, you and I, we live in the West. We see how this country operates. We would think most things should be quite straightforward. So why is our Muslim countries struggling to get it right?
Well, I think because in essence they are basically fighting each other in a lot of cases, unfortunately. They're spending their resources. I mean, we put out a few videos which we look at in the report, and there is massive spending on militaries to fight each other. The economic issues and the systems that they have are not addressing the needs of the people. The governments are outdated and outmoded, and in reality it's not one factor, it's a combination. And in all those areas there's an intimate link with Western economies, Western systems, which means that they are dependent. So they have to get the politics right. They have to get the military right, and we've just had Qatar and Saudi Arabia just agreeing a peace deal now after 3 years of sanctions against Qatar. And what did it achieve? Qatar hasn't changed its position. The rulers didn't lose anything, I'm sure, but the people of those regions have suffered. And can you imagine that at the moment we have Donald Trump, who's been taken off Facebook and Twitter, and he's considered a hate preacher now these days. And yet these two countries were relying on Trump and Jared Kushner, as brokers in a peace between themselves. I mean, why can't Muslims talk to themselves? Why can't they? We belong to one deen. In that area, they have the same culture. The two tribes are even related. But, they had to get somebody from outside their faith and their deen to actually
put heads together and get talking.
And, maybe the Football World Cup helped it a little bit. But, why can't we need to start resolving our differences politically, instead of fighting using Western weapons and bombs and equipment, burning the Ummah's wealth on these things, and destroying all the years of effort in terms of infrastructure and then rebuilding them again. We simply cannot go on doing that. And, there are 53 nation states in the Muslim world. I'm sure some of the other states can act as peacemakers and bridge builders rather than relying on others outside.
Yeah, excellent, excellent, excellent. I mean, just to diverge slightly, we mentioned America and Donald Trump. and Twitter, banning Donald Trump. I mean, that's unprecedented for a company or a media outlet or some form just to censor a president of the United States. I mean, does that indicate that, America's stature in the world is declining?
Well, it's not surprising, really. I mean, it is quite exceptional. I mean, here you have the most powerful country on earth, and in President Trump, who leads the most powerful country, the idea of the leader of the free world, and the leader of the free world is no longer free to even talk to people on his Twitter, on his Facebook, because he's now classed as a hate preacher. I mean, imagine you've been telling people for 30 years that, America is under threat from Al-Qaeda, from Iran, from this angle, from immigrants, from foreigners. They're taking over. They want to take over your country. You have to take your country back, with all the propaganda. After all that, and President Trump has been making all these comments. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg took him off Facebook. His wife is Chinese. He didn't take him off when he said the Chinese virus or Kung flu, but he's taken him off now. And what you had, it's an amazing situation, really, that the people themselves tried to take over the government. In any other country,
unprecedented again, another unprecedented thing where you get people storming Washington DC.
Terrorism, but it's not surprising. You told them to take their country back, and they tried.
Exactly.
You've been telling them for 30 years that it's under occupation from enemy forces, from alien interests. So they've just reaped what they sowed themselves. But yeah, quite amazing things going on in the United States.
Yeah. And like I said, even that the latest situation was quite unprecedented with the Capitol being stormed by protesters. That's some sort of things that you never see. You see it in other countries, and you see protests generally in America, but you didn't see at that level going straight to the Capitol, into the government buildings, and literally, bringing it to a standstill.
If it was people of any other color, they'd be called extremists
and terrorists. Absolutely, it would be.
Not protesters. So.
Because there was violence involved, if I remember correctly.
Well, 5 people died.
Yeah, exactly. So and it was for a political motive. So, most books, that's the definition of terrorism.
Acts of violence in the building. I mean, they ransacked it. They occupied it. It caused damage. Those are all acts of terrorism under the law, certainly in this country.
Yeah, inshallah. Okay, enough of America. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we'll get back to the Muslim world again once we've returned. So we'll be right back, folks. Okay, welcome back to the show. We have our guest here with us, Jahangir Mohammed. And Jahangir, you're launching Ayan Institute, of which you're the founder or co-founder, should I say. And look, I've been seeing some of your pre-launch publicity, And you're talking, saying good things about building our economy, our society, our militaries, etc. And we need to be united, and that's all good buzzwords. We've heard this for decades that we should be getting united. But you also cited statements from two leaders I spotted. Yeah, one was Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and President Erdogan of Turkey. Uh, how important are these two figures, and why would they cite it?
Well, I think they were cited with quotes that they'd made or comments. Obviously, leaders are important in the Muslim world. Governments are there. We have to deal with a reality that exists. But the bottom line is we are not just we're not just trying to reach the leaders. We're trying to reach beyond the leaders, and the comments that they made fit in with the ideas, some of the ideas in the report, and that's why they've been cited. And as it happens, there were actually three. There was Mahathir Mohammed as well.
Yeah, Mahathir Mohammed as well. Yeah.
So
look.
So these are people.
I'm not criticizing that too much, because those are the same three leaders that appear in the introduction to the Real Agenda.
Yeah, and they basically have said things which have been raised in the report. So
Okay.
so the message is more important than the
message itself that was given in those. So let me get this right. You're not endorsing what these leaders do in their entirety. No. You just agree with certain statements, which are they make it. All right, they've got a point there.
And they're discussion points. There was a unity conference that they held in Malaysia, where there was an effort to discuss some of these issues. In fact, from what we've been fed back, people were struggling for ideas. There was this zeal or passion, recognition that some of these issues and coming together needed to happen. And it just so happens that those three leaders would have been at the forefront of that discussion. And we thought, they're talking about some of this and it fits in with that. Let's home in on that, and people will listen.
Inshallah, yeah. Okay, that's good. It's good to get buzzwords and buzz comments to.
And we do say in the report and for Ayan that we're totally independent.
You're totally
independent.
Independent, yeah.
And basically, we believe fundamentally that fresh thinking, new ideas, the best forms of fresh thinking, new ideas come about if you can retain that level of independence and distance from governments, and that hasn't always happened. A lot of Islamic
that's good to hear, to have independence and distance from government. So how? Okay, look, you've newly formed organisation. How do you intend? Look, for the viewers at home, I've probably got an idea, knowing you all this time, how that works. But how do you go about being an independent organisation, not being, influenced by a government? You're not being paid by a government, obviously. So how does all that work?
Well, I think anybody who knows me and has read my writings knows that I don't hold back on issues involving governments overseas and issues that affect the Ummah. So for example, I've got an article coming out on the Ayan's website on a particular issue, which will say that on a particular issue, the Muslim world has failed the test of brotherhood. I won't say any more than that. You can read it when it comes out.
When it comes out, that's a sneak peek there. An article on brotherhood coming soon.
So I already start from that point, and both the co-founders are committed to that, and the team are
Yeah.
I think now there's an awareness in the Muslim community itself that a lot of groups and movements have been funded for years by regimes in the Muslim world that
Correct.
hampers the ability to be independent. So our independence is in the sense that we want to produce ideas and influence people. We're not trying to go about getting funds from anybody. So our ideas are not meant to extract funds or funding. In fact, if you look on our website, we don't even have a donations page because we didn't want to enter into that area of, the Muslim community is full of competition for funds.
Yes, yes.
We didn't want to do that because we're confident in what we're doing. The team is confident, and we've already had people coming forward, to support the organisation, and we want it to be like that. We want private individuals.
So basically, what you're saying is that it's self.
We're not going to come to you for funding.
Okay.
If you like what we're doing, if you're committed to the
right. We're welcome to make donations, but you're not going to go around with the.
It's not a donation. We want people,
Yeah. Okay, that's excellent.
And even if we don't, nobody's funding us. Well, we're going to carry on with this work anyway.
So you're all volunteers, I take it.
Yeah. So at the moment, that's how it's working. But obviously, we've got some paid employees.
Okay, yeah, depending on what type of work it is.
Yeah, funds coming in. So we're not. The team is confident.
Yeah, confidence is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to be just another funding appeal organisation.
No, because people ask. I think people are already asking, and obviously anybody who's raising doubts about what you're doing. Obviously, I know you, so when somebody says it in front of me, I could say something. But people are already raising doubts, about funding, influence, this kind of thing. And it's like, hang on, let them launch, let them have their say. So inshallah, we should inshallah happening on this Thursday, and hear out what it is you're envisage to do, and judge based on your actions, inshallah. So look, we talked about Erdogan and Imran Khan, and look, Ayan Institute. Look, Imran Khan, Mahathir Mohammed, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, they can get together on their own. They don't need Ayan Institute. So when we talk about towards a unified Muslim world, okay, and unity, you guys are a newly founded organization. You have virtually zero influence over political leaders, so you're not about knocking their heads together. So what are you going to be about?
Well, I think sometimes there's an assumption that leaders and governments know what to do. In fact, people don't know what to do in many cases because people are in the daily grind of politics. They're bogged down in that. They're dealing with global situations, and think tanks can raise ideas. I mean, sometimes I get calls from journalists from different countries, and it's quite clear that they want to know which direction somebody should be taking. For for example, I did an interview the other day, and somebody wanted to know what the implications are for the deal on another particular country. Are they going to abandon Turkey and Iran? Are they going to, do something else? They want an analysis of that, see what people are thinking and which way it goes. So I think we shouldn't always assume that government knows what they're doing or people around them. Sometimes people around them and consultants and others will tell them what they want to hear. So it's important to have independent, critical voices. In fact, one of the people, academics who provided us with some information in relation to some issues. Issues to do with ethnicity and nationalism and dealing with different groups. What we're hearing is that they're actually governments are struggling with those issues. So, just like in this country, governments consult people.
They consult. Yeah, that's true. So, would you say in the Muslim world then, we have problems consulting our own people, or people are for good caliber to even solve the problems?
Yeah, I think we do, because everybody in politics, just like in the West, you choose your friends and those who support you in government, and they're not often the critical voices that you need. People don't like criticism, and they can't be independent, so you have to have an independent voice, and to be honest, there aren't that many. The Muslim world is full of people who agree with each other, and
I mean, I've always thought that
the media in the Muslim world is not free either.
Yeah,
most of the media is state-owned.
State-owned, yeah.
So you don't get much of a critical debate.
Is it too much different? You've got certain outlets which are pro-state, and then you've got others which are behind a particular political party.
The things that we can say here about the Muslim world, a lot of people can't say. And I remember many years ago, I was sitting next to the Grand Mufti of Tunisia, and we were having a private chat before he started to speak. And I thought he was a wonderful guy, and I thought, well, this guy agreed with my politics. He got up and he gave a speech which was totally different. when he sat down, I said to him, Sheikh, what's going on? You just said these things to me, and now you've just said that. And he said, brother, you are more free than us. So the reality is, if you go to some places, you can't even get on the internet to look at some of the more moderate things that go on in the Muslim.
You'd be surprised that what we consider moderate is actually banned in some countries.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, despite we know the restrictions here, I'd still say that this is one of the best countries in terms of being able to speak freely and talk about issues.
Excellent. Okay. So, like I said, what I asked you was about, we clearly aren't about getting leaders together. And, we've gone through some of our problems and where we're lagging our politicians, our media. So, ordinary folk, let's say you're reaching out to us ordinary folk in, where do we take things then? If it's not the leaders that you're going to make talk together, and either they are talking or they're not, and that's down to them. What do we as ordinary Muslims? What are we going to be doing? To contribute to our societies, to contribute towards unity. What do we do?
Well, obviously we have to raise the consciousness of the issues. We have to communicate the right ideas. We have to change people's minds and hearts about what's going on. We have to help them better understand what's going on in the Muslim world, and we have to give them ideas about how we might solve those problems, and the fact that they are part of the solution to those issues. Because if the people are more articulate and understand the issues, and they're able to communicate that, the leaders themselves will realize that that people are, when I talk about people, we're talking at all levels here, not just the leaders, but within governments you have agencies, you have civil servants, you have policy makers, you have universities, you have think tanks. So there's a wide spectrum of people who you need to influence, and whose behaviour has to change. And I think that's the challenge. As well as in the report we highlight certain practical areas or approaches that help to build unification, because you have to understand what they are. What are the obstacles? You know, we could talk about unification and unity, but you have to understand what the obstacles are and what you can do to address some of those. So it's a start of a discussion about a continuing debate, around the obstacles to unification and how we can possibly.
Sorry, I think your voice has gone down again. What was that?
Yeah, so it's the start of a discussion about identifying the roadblocks and in detail looking at the obstacles towards unification and how to overcome them.
Okay, the obstacles and how to overcome those obstacles. Now, I'm going to ask the skeptical question here, which we get from the Muslim community, and I've heard this, I've also heard this for going back 20 years, is that, look, these are all good, fanciful ideas, talking about unity and getting the Muslims together. And you know what it is, the Muslims will just won't get together. It's like an impossibility. And the question we get thrown back at us is that, look, why aren't you just waiting for Imam Mahdi? Imam Mahdi will come and he's just going to unify everybody. So, I'm flipping the tables here now. So why can't we just wait for Imam Mahdi to come and unify us all?
Well, why should Imam Mahdi come? He'll take one look at this current plight, and he probably think, I'm not taking over this lot. You actually have to have something that's worth taking over. And at the moment, we don't have it, and it's a bit of a cop out. Really.
Cop out, yeah. Always
because it means you don't have to do anything, and that's not in that's not in accordance with the Quran, with the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Yeah.
And all the other prophets that are referred to in the Quran. I mean, imagine, you look at that society and think, what's going to change? And it's not the work, the way others work in the non-Muslim world. They have ideas, they chart direction, and they work towards those goals. And you don't do it in your own life. You want to get a degree.
Yeah.
There's a pathway to getting a degree.
The way to go about it, yeah.
And you have to go and exert some effort to get there.
Yeah. Because it does seem like a religious objection. Oh, we need to wait for Imam Mahdi. But Jahangir, look, you've covered this subject a lot, and I don't expect you to go through an entire lecture now. And I'm just going to ask you quite frankly, and I don't mean go through a methodology either. Just if you took snippets or examples, how would you say, look, it's all about, as Muslims, it's all about, okay, it's not waiting for that, waiting for this. It's like, okay, ultimately our paradigm, the person we're meant to follow, the best example is Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Prophet of Islam, So what would you say, if you could pick one or two things, what would you say was the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's way of unity, bringing people together?
I don't want to say too much about that because
that's why I'll keep it to one or two snippets.
That's sectioned in the report, and also I want to say something about that.
Just a couple of snippets.
Let's look at it. He went from a position of. There's a video on our website.
Yeah,
Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the peacemaker.
Peacemaker, yeah.
Now, in that, there's a snippet of what he did. I mean, how did he get from Mecca, being persecuted, fleeing in the middle of the night, to a society that was in Medina that had been ravaged by feuding tribes, killing each other for, some of the historians say for around 100 years. And he ended up in charge of that society, or they looked to him to hold that society together. How did you get to that?
Yeah.
So we need to take that's one of the challenges I'm saying. Look, we need to think about that. And I actually pose in the video, the West says he's the source of all the violence in the Muslim world. Yeah,
they criticize us. We use
and they've been doing that for centuries. The Orientalists, the Crusaders, they all said that. But the reality is, compared to say the French Revolution or the American Revolution, how they created their political order, it was relatively peaceful. So, and how did he do it? That's the question. And there's a section in the report on that, which starts the discussion. And I think we need to rethink some of these things and how we present them to the Muslim world and the wider society.
Okay, so what we're looking forward to from Ayaan Institute, what is it going to be? Is it all about, when you say think tank, is it just about ideas? Is it projects? Is it practical steps?
Well, there'll be a bit of both. It's the think tank, and the aim is to raise discussion, frame narrative, and to critically analyze certain areas to enhance understanding. And we're going to do it in the way of a modern think tank, which is not necessarily always academic, although there will be areas where we will look at academic, more detailed research.
Yeah.
But, modern think tanks are about influencing policymakers, politicians, those that matter,
sure,
and countering other ideas that exist.
Okay, so let's look at a different, well, not even a different way. Just we've got the event coming for viewers. It's tomorrow, okay, which is going to be Thursday, the 14th of January, 2021. What time is the event, Jahangir?
Yeah, so it's not tomorrow. It's on Thursday.
Yes, it's Thursday. It's for the viewers. It's going to be tomorrow.
It's on the 14th.
Yeah.
And it's at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So we have some speakers, myself, Dr. Yasser Qadi, Sheikh Umar Sulaiman as well. So they will be contributing to that discussion. Please register online, www.ayaninstitute.com. Join us for the start of this exciting new discussion, and download the report, read the report, check the Facebook, and
inshallah,
Twitter. There'll be snippets, there'll be little videos.
Inshallah, we will get some links to this on the bottom of this video on our platform
and,
as well.
We do also invite contributions. People want to write articles. Mm-hmm. There's a section on there, but they must fit within our objectives.
Objectives, of course.
So, if you've got articles on what is causing division and obstacles or to brotherhood and unity in a particular area, then, write in with an article, and if it fits in with our agenda and the parameters of our thinking, then inshallah we can publish it.
Inshallah. Okay, folks. So for you guys watching, the launch online conference will be tomorrow, and watch out for that. We'll have, inshallah, we'll put links below to Ayaan Institute, so you can register for that and watch it, inshallah. And I'm sure if we get a copy or recording of that, we'll put it onto our platforms too, so everybody gets to see what you guys are doing, inshallah. Wish you all the best for Ayaan Institute, Jahangir. Jazakallah for giving us your time. I look forward to speaking to you, on a topical issue in future, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. And there are lots of sections, topics that are touched on in the report. And if UCTV wants to do a discussion on any of them in the future, please give us a shout.
Okay, inshallah, yeah, after the launch, inshallah. All right. Okay, folks, that's a wrap for tonight. Jazakallah for tuning in. And inshallah, we'll be seeing you for another show next time.